All right, looks like the computer is showing 5:30, so we will call the meeting to order. We record the attendance. Looks like all members are present. We'll move on to Article 2, Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Article 3, approval of the current agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passed. Approval of the minutes from the July 13th meeting.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Hearing none. Motion carries. Article 5 of the agenda is the acknowledgement of visitors who wish to speak on non-agenda items. If there's anyone out in the audience that wishes to speak, please come forward. Seeing none, we will move right into Article 6, case number 21-3648.
Right, you guys have the things in your packet. You've got this site plan in your packet as well. So what you have in front of you isn't your typical zoning variance like you see a lot. This is a platted lot line reconfiguration. So our subdivision ordinance requires before platted lots could be reconfigured, that the zoning board of appeals really has to approve that. So it's just a little bit different. So those standards in the ordinance, I put them in your packet. Those are a little bit different than you typically see. So I guess I just want you to remind you that's not necessarily a variance that they're asking for, but it just requires the zoning board of appeals approval. These are two platted lots, platted subdivisions. One of them Mooring Heights, the other one Oak Brook. I know I gave you in your packet the actual subdivision drawings from these two different platted subdivisions, but essentially what you see happening is in the back of this Oak Brook lot. I think probably because of the way the stream runs through there, and because of the large lot off of Mooring Heights, that it probably looks and feels like some of this area was part of Oak Brook. Well, those neighbors were essentially sort of landscaping back there. So what these guys are trying to do, what the two property owners are trying to come together, is basically reconfigure the properties, taking a little bit of property from Mooring Heights and adding it to the Oak Brook. So just reconfiguring those properties to essentially put the landscaping on the property like it should be. So it sounds like it's, some neighbors kind of just working out this particular issue. So it didn't sound like a contentious issue, but nonetheless, when you sort of move property lines around, there is a process that you have to go through. Put the details in your packet for, the amount, the sizes and all that. But obviously the smaller parcel is getting bigger, the bigger parcel is getting smaller. Usually that makes things a little bit easier. In this case, it certainly does, because the property that is giving some property up is quite large. So it really doesn't change what I would describe as the characteristics of the subdivision. The two lots that are at the end of Mooring Heights are the larger lots. The rest of Mooring Heights would be what I would describe as maybe just normal size parcels. We did put in the packet, there is some paperwork that they would still need to do. The county tax department does require that they fill out a form that shows that their taxes are up to speed. So both property owners will have to turn that in if you approve this configuration. I gave you those standards. Staff is recommending approval of this reconfiguration, and that they would simply have to record the deeds within the next 30 days, which is the normal requirement for any kind of lot line change. You did get an email from the public notice comment that there was some concern from a neighbor, I suspect, that felt that it didn't need to come to the zoning board of appeals for approval, that it could just be an administrative function. While it normally is an administrative function for normal lot splits in an unplatted area, You also have the letter from our attorney who gave you the opinion that, yes, indeed, we do believe that this is the proper course of action. The zoning board of appeals needs to approve a platted lot line shift. So that was really the only comment that we received from the public notice. So again, we're recommending approval of the lot line shift with really just the normal conditions that they need to do that tax form, and they will need to record the new deeds within the next 30 days.
Any questions? All right. We'll hand it over to the project presentation if the applicant would like to add anything to that, or if they have their own.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Schnelker with Schnelker, Rassi, and McConnell. And I represent Brad and Michelle Stevenson, who took the lead on this project in submitting the application. I really don't have much to add beyond what Steve said, but a little bit of additional background. The Bio-Ulrey lot, which is the larger lot, there's a fairly steep grade that comes down to where the Stevenson lot is. And what the Stevensons have done over a number of years is landscape this area. They have a pergola set up in here. They've planted trees. They've done a number of other things. And so we felt that rather than, deal with a situation where we would have to record maybe an easement or something to that effect, it would just be easier to do a lot line adjustment, provided both parties agreed to do so. So everybody met out at the property earlier this year. They walked off kind of where they thought the boundary line should go. The Stevensons took the lead, had it surveyed, which is what you see right here. Everyone is in agreement on that. We have a written agreement in place, which wasn't included in the packet, between the property owners where they agreed to all of this. And at this point, assuming you approve the request, we'll file deeds transferring the property over to the Stevensons. And then each property owner will record a deed to themselves so that there's a nice, clean legal description for the new parcels that's submitted to the county, so the tax rolls are updated. So that's pretty much all there is to it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Mr. Stevenson is here today, and Mr. Bile is also here today if you have any questions of them.
Any questions of the board? All right, with this being a public hearing, I would entertain a motion to open public.
I move to go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Any comments, Steve, from anybody else?
Just the one comment, we do have Jessica running the Zoom meeting tonight. So if we have anybody online, you can ask her as well.
Jessica, anybody chiming in?
There isn't anyone with their hands raised.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close public hearing.
Second. We have motion and support to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. We will bring it back to the commission for discussion. If anyone has any questions or statements?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the reconfiguration of lots proposed with the stipulations that staff has. The new deeds are recorded within 30 days and the Kent County tax forms are completed. This seems to be very, administrative task, and it's great that the neighbors work this out ahead of time. We always really appreciate that. And that's just a good common sense thing to do, but it doesn't always happen. So thank you.
Second motion.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. We will move on to Article 7, Case 21-3649.
I don't think this one's in your packet. But this one is more of your traditional variance. So the standards that you see in this one are the standards you're very familiar with. So what is being requested tonight is a zoning variance to put a shed in the front yard. Maybe I'll use this one first. This one is in your packet. So this is down in the Somerset subdivision, kind of south end of the township off of 60th Street by McCord's Avenue. So what they would like to do is they have actually put a shed out here in front of the property. So the home kind of in the back. This is the road out here and the shed kind of in this location here. This yellow line representing what would be described as the front yard, right? So everything between the road and the home is the front yard, which is where we traditionally don't permit accessory buildings. We do have a provision in our ordinance that does allow for buildings in the front yard. There's kind of two times it comes into play. One, if you're on a body of water, you can have a building in your front yard as long as you meet the front setback requirement. Obviously, that's not the case here. And then we also have that provision that as long as, if you had to drive over your septic tank to get to where to build it, or if you had to remove significant amount of vegetation and the building was at least 200 feet off of the right of way, you can have a building in the front yard. So it was staff's opinion looking at this, that they really met those two requirements that about the septic tank and about tree removal, but obviously they don't meet the 200-foot setback requirement. So that's the reason why they are here for a variance. If you're wondering why the building's already there, it's under 200 square feet, so it does not require a building permit. So, you try to prevent that when you can, but it's not that uncommon for someone to move a small shed onto their property when they don't need a building permit. So they are here asking to have permission to keep the building essentially where it is. If you made it out there, you probably saw it. There was some pictures in your packet as well. One of the things I think to point out, and I think the reason why I wanted to put this aerial photo in here, this is the piece of property that we're talking about. So you can see the home is built towards the rear of the property. So of course that means, most of their lot is their front yard, and with the side yard being consumed by their septic tank and drain field, there really isn't any place on this property to put something that wouldn't be in the front yard. And you can see from the homes that are a little bit to the south here, where this building is located, it will look and feel like it's sort of in the neighbor's side or rear yard. So obviously that's one of the things, you hope to prevent by not allowing buildings in the front yard is, you wouldn't want it to be, stuck out in front of your neighbor's house, let's say. But because of the fact that their applicant's house is built so far back, even putting the shed in their own front yard, it will kind of appear that it will be in the side yard or rear yard of the neighboring homes. So I thought that was a helpful illustration of that. Again, they gave you kind of the drawing that shows all of the vegetation in there. It was our opinion, it was the staff's opinion that it was worthy of a variance. We, the one standard that we kind of hesitated a little bit is that one that talks about the minimum amount of variance necessary. So certainly the idea of pushing this building further back towards that front of the house, you still can't get to the 200 feet. So they still would need a variance even if we push that back. And when you look at that, part of the property, it seems like you end up in the more clear area of the property. And so it may actually become more visible to the neighbors than if it was sort of tucked where it is now. Obviously, they may decide to remove those trees in the future, but we just thought, given the fact that it is already kind of behind what I would describe as that front lot line for the neighbors, and that by just minimizing the amount of variance, it didn't seem like it really provided any assistance. So we were comfortable recommending approval of the variance as you see it today.
Anyone have any questions? All right, we will turn it over to the applicant if they have any questions or additional information they want to provide.
I certainly, first of all, appreciate everyone's time. I didn't anticipate that I was going to have to come here today and spend your time on this matter, and I understand you have a lot of valuable considerations. There were quite a bit of photos included. I wanted to make it really easy for everybody here today to understand the situation and the selection of the location, because I very methodically chose that. And so specifically on my lot here, if we look at it.
Here are those photos if you want.
Okay, so perfect. Thank you. So in this situation too, There's really heavy conifer in this area. Those were partly natural, and then I spaced them out. There's about 40 pine trees here. And then also in this area, but then this area here, it thins out significantly. So like you had mentioned, if I pull the shed back in here, it's going to be significantly more visible to passersby. And then also from like my perspective of the front lot line, when we look back at the map here, when I'm looking out my front door, I see a pool here and I see a significant home. That's about a 6,400 square foot home. I get along with that neighbor great. And the same thing with the neighbor here that's sort of in my front yard, because my yard is set so far back. And so I understand that that's created some difficulty that it's set so far back. But I've also gone to these neighbors and these neighbors and this neighbor and communicated with them whether they had concerns in that regard, because I understand they would be the ones mostly directly impacted, and none of them did. And so I also provided photos both of winter time and of summertime so that you can understand the level of cover. So this is from the front of the property. There's zero visibility of the shed. In this particular photo is winter time or young springtime when we're starting to have some budding. And that's directly from the front of the road. And when we talk about the 200 feet, this would be that level of 200 foot required distance. I believe it's about 70 feet, but because of the density there, you just simply can't see that. And leading also with the worst view. So in winter time, noting that the most visible the shed ever gets is from the eastern side as you're driving by, and this is the shed here in that situation. And in order to alleviate concerns, I've planted 25 evergreens in this front garden bed here additionally. And I do understand, and I've read carefully on all the rules and you know why these things are concerns, and that vegetation may be removed from future homeowners. But when we look at the amount of vegetation on the lot as a whole, I planted almost 250 conifers or evergreens on the lot. And so eventually being within 3 to 5 years, there'll be zero visibility of anything inside the lot other than directly from the front. And so I believe this particular location is the best for not just myself, but for the subdivision as well, in terms of visibility, even from the road or other neighbors. And so that's my concluding statement. And I really appreciate everybody's time here today. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions that any of you have.
Thank you. Board have any questions?
Move we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. No one in the public? So I'll bring it back to the board. Oh, that's right. Anyone on Zoom?
There are no people with their hand raised on the line.
Thank you.
Close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are back to the board for discussion.
Does that mean I'm good to go? Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
And with that, I move we approve the variance as requested.
Second.
We have motion and support to approve case 21-3649. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to Article 8. Any other business?
I have none.
Hearing none, we will move to number 9.
I know it's unrelated, but I think there's a
Sir, public comment is over.
It's under other business.
No, there we go. Okay.
I think we do have a meeting next month, so
Okay.
we can plan on that.
All right. Article 9. Entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Minutes.